Welcome everyone to this week after church tea time again about Shaleia sermon today on Jesus and the true meaning of devotion. So we are here to discuss. Today we are with Asin and Charlie. So yeah, let's start the discussion today.
Yeah. And it's on gallery.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I really loved today's sermon. It was a wonderful sermon, and I was saying before we had technical difficulties, but I was saying that I really have always resonated with the teachings of Jesus, and a lot of the teachings of Jesus is part of what attracted me to Unionism in the first place, and so there's a lot of similarities. And yeah, lately we've been learning a lot about leaving the world, which means the world of ego, which in A Course in Miracles, Jesus refers to the world as the world. And so because his life was just a perfect example of leaving the world behind, and how when you do that, your life looks completely different than everyone else. Yeah. And so I really loved that Shaleia really emphasized that, and that Jesus's life is such a great example of just following God and not caring, what society says, and that it didn't matter who followed him or who didn't. He was just very committed to God. So that's what I loved about the sermon. Yeah,
it was a beautiful sermon, especially the part about just following God and not caring about other things or opinions or situations or challenges. You just put the focus on God and you move towards Him, and you start developing that relationship. That is what this teaching of Unionism teaches you how to do. Only to put your focus on God. So yeah, that was my favorite part. What about you guys? What did you receive from it? Seeing Charlie?
Yeah, it's funny because I was invited unexpectedly to be here, yesterday, and I was thinking about what would I share, what I would have to share, about Jesus' life, and then when Shaleia was talking about in the sermon, it's just really being with God, it's just following God and where God guides you, in every moment, and this is really beautiful because this is what I'm really healing, and really what God wants for me to do right now, and yeah, it's just amazing. It reminds me as well a quote that Jeff and Shaleia spoke about, I guess it was Jeff and Shaleia, that you must love God more than your upsets, and this is what truly means to, you know, going deeper with God, committing with God, and Jesus' teachings, when I was a kid, I always was very close to Jesus, I feel like Jesus kind of guided me to, this community in a way, and he always helped me when I asked for guidance, even in my dreams when I was healing something deep, and yeah, I really kind of receiving a lot, what Saray was talking about. It was really a powerful sermon and was really beautiful. It's just completely being present with, it's just surrender and release all ego, yeah.
I was very emotional when I was watching this sermon. And I grew up, of course, hearing about Jesus. And but I found that it was more focused just on the crucifixion, and not really, no one really talked about Jesus's life. I remember being a kid and asking my mom if Jesus had a girlfriend, and she said no. And I said, well, why not? And she said, because he had to remain pure. And then I come here and it's hear all about, Mary Magdalene. So that's not true. But yeah, I mean, I feel like that is so much focus is on just the crucifixion and things that led up to that and the martyrism. But to like really just talk about like how Jesus lived his life like in complete service to God, like, and how Shaleia had talked about like, yeah, he knew like the crucifixion was going to happen, but it didn't change anything at all. He still lived his life, and um, I feel like that's like very humbling, like for all of us, because we don't know at all, like what tomorrow will bring, what next week will bring, or whatever. But it's all about, being in service right now and being with God right now. Um, so I found that like really peaceful, and, living a life like, in complete devotion, because there are times like, like I have made that core choice to like, live, as one with God and have God, but there, yeah, like I'm still learning, right? And there are times when, yeah, um, we forget it's so easy. It's just a choice, because there's some parts like, I really want to experience God in this place. Well, it's simply a choice of bringing God into that place, and sharing that experience with God, because there's, I don't know, it's just an insane thought that there's some things in my life that I don't always see that God's in it too, right? It's like, why would God be in that? But God is in everything, So yeah, that feels uh, that feels really good. And the other thing that Saraya said about, you know, there's people who go to church on Sunday, and then how do they live the rest of their week? And we all know these people. Everybody knows these people. But um, yeah, I mean, that's really like saying like, God is only in church, right? So, and to me, that's just such a limiting thought that, you know, God is only in this one place, and so much more peaceful and loving, and just that God is everywhere. And Jesus, yeah, and Jesus taught us that. Like, um, everything that came out, like everything that Jesus shared, and just just who Jesus was just unconditional love and compassion. And I get very emotional when I think of Jesus, and when I feel into the Christ consciousness, right? Of someone who was like so surrendered and so in service, and just um, such an incredibly loving being. Like, and yeah, so, and it's in all of us. We're all brothers and sisters of Jesus. Like, you know, um, Jesus never thought of himself as better than anyone, not even for a moment. We're all children of God, and and this, I think, this triggers a lot of people, because you know, um, but I mean, it all comes back to how you feel about yourself, right? So, but I'm proud, like, to stand beside Jesus. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to share something really that I feel like what it what is really beautiful about Jesus is that deep trust that he have with God. And this was what he is teaching. Like, we surrender to God and trust that he take care of us. And this is kind of completely resonate with the card reading that Ajahn spoke today in the sermon as well, like releasing these old patterns about, especially with family, way that we are raised, because we projected on God, and this is what, releasing these patterns is what requires for us to have that deep trust in God, that God will take care of us, that God have a deep purpose, for us, and into healing and being perfect union with God. And yeah, and as well as like Jesus was teaching, and by just being himself, is the same thing that Jeff and Shalia teach. Is really like embrace yourself, and not trying to find yourself in others, like trying to be like Jesus, or trying to be like Jeff and Shalia, or anybody else, And this is a unique relationship that you find only with God, because God is the one that reveals to you who you are, and that's all that they are teaching. That's all that we are learning here. It's really like fall in love for ourselves and for God. the way that we are and the way that God is.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I was thinking about that too, and how Shaleia said that the teachings of Jesus was not just like you do this and like be a good person for whatever reason. It's actually a lifestyle of making God like the core of your existence and relating to God in every way, all the time, not just, on Sundays or at church. But yeah, like he was, and that's exactly what unionism is. It's like a lifestyle. It's not just once a week or a couple minutes or like, in sessions. It's a constant eternal relationship with God where you're present with your feelings and you love yourself with the mirror exercise, and you're always constantly removing blocks to God. And that's exactly what Jesus did. And I think it's really beautiful too that he did know he was going to be crucified, but it didn't matter. And I really love how in A Course in Miracles it explains why the crucifixion took place, and it wasn't like it didn't have anything to do with suffering. It was to prove that death doesn't exist, And that's why he wasn't afraid, because he was so confident in God and like God's laws that he could go wherever he wanted, and like it wasn't easy for him. But like he knew that God didn't create death or pain and suffering, and so his life is a huge testament of just the truth. It's beautiful.
Yeah, he was constantly denying like the worst laws because he had like a lot of opposition of the church people or all the people around the government. They were trying to trick him into like trying to get him basically several times. There is like some stories in the Bible about it, but Jesus always referred to God's laws and not to the the game that they were playing, and he completely refused to accept pain in any way, to accept separation in any way. And this is something that Jeff speak in a class. That he also was working through his process of removing more and more blocks to God until he ascended, and it was like his journey to go back to God. And he knew so clearly that he wanted God no matter what, and that commitment produced all of that miracles and that life, all that impact on the world. Must be beautiful.
Yeah, because he just followed God. I remember there was this day, it was after I first joined TFAS. It was like a couple months into my first live class. And I remember I was just like thinking about the teachings, and I was thinking about Jesus and his life and how devoted he was to God, which is what the sermon was about. And I just felt so emotional. I remember just like crying because it's just so beautiful that like he did not care what he had to do. Like he was so like he did such a huge service to the world that will like always impact humanity, like always. And that's exactly what unionism is. It's like it's an internal impact. And so it's just really beautiful that we have so many people here who are committed to walking the path and like facing down your deepest fears. And it's beautiful. It makes me emotional.
I was just thinking about that because Charlie had brought it up earlier, is about how there's no blocks or upsets that are greater or bigger than God, and that they're meaningless, right? But for them to get in the way of having like that relationship with God, Jesus didn't even give these things a second thought. Like was always completely focused on God. And we've all had upsets and blocks that do you ever have like an upset so big that you're like, I know I'm never going to get over this. I know, but yeah, it's just so beautiful. Like just how easily, like, I mean, how it's very humbling really is what like how like, how insignificant this thing is, like just to like remind myself that this upset or this block or whatever is not greater than my relationship with God. And at the end of it, like, does it even matter? Like, if this is like this insignificant thing is standing between me and experiencing my heaven on earth, like, like really putting it into perspective, that it gives you like that, looking at the big picture, like Shaleia said. So like, it just, blocks and upsets and stuff just seem like, so, I mean, they were always meaningless, but just looking at them from that, through like Jesus's eyes, it just, it's just, it's so much nothing. No upset is greater than my relationship with God. So that feels really good and peaceful in my heart. Thank you.
Thank you. That feels really good. And it's true that there's literally no block that can stand between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that Jeff says, in some of our live classes recently. I think the first one or two where he said there's literally nothing in all of creation that could ever stand between you and God besides your choice. And I remember in the sermon where Sarai mentioned at the beginning how there were, like, Jesus had thousands of followers. And he was super popular and everyone liked, what he was saying. But as they went deeper and, they were on the ascension path and, they got faced, with some deep stuff. And then slowly they started to fall off. And that's why he triggered people so much. And I think we can see parallels with our journeys, when people have to face deep stuff, like it can seem more convenient to just like project it onto the teacher, the teaching, when it's actually your own stuff coming up. And so that's like, I really liked, Jesus is the perfect example of like a true follower of God, where it doesn't matter what you face, you're going to choose God and you're going to move through it. And Unionism gives you the ability to just do that so easily, like just face your feeling, feel your feelings and love yourself. And it dissolves the upset. And so, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's all about like following the good feeling. Like Shaleia mentioned about that the story with Jesus entering the temple. He just like went, with his feelings where he was called to be.
Yeah.
And he was just following God, that good feeling. And that is, that good feeling that everyone has in their journey, that is moving you somewhere. And that is God. And that is the thing that Jesus was following all the time. Like that voice of God, like, inviting him to move forward in his journey, no matter what.
And you're going to hit blocks and challenges that seem really difficult, like Ajahn is saying, like that you just feel like you'll never make it through, but you always will. Like you'll always make it through. And so it's safe to I think Sarai said, like, walk for the long haul, with Jesus and with Unionism and with God. And it just takes that choice to continue to move through your feelings and like take responsibility for the things coming up and releasing judgment about it and just like choosing love and healing.
Yeah. What I love about Sarai is saying too, like we are here just practicing all of the skills like forgiveness, releasing judgment, like compassion, all of those things, that we need to mature ourselves, and I like to see like the upset not as an obstacle. I know that in the beginning we tend to see in that way, but the truth is the upset is just like a feeling that needs like God there. It's just something that needs peace, deeper peace. And once you give that to yourself, you receive that from God, there's no upset there anymore. It's just a part of yourself that got more mature, the deepening into that peace, into that relationship with God, and it's just like what it is. So it's not like an obstacle, it's just like a opportunity for you to be more closer to God in that place.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's safe to look at, because if everyone knew and believed that they could make it through the challenge, then they would do it. But that's where faith comes in, and that's another thing that the life of Jesus really demonstrates is faith. Something that Jeff and Shaleia talk about. It's like a core principle of Unionism. Just continuing to have faith through the challenges, because like you said, like Charlie said, they're building blocks, like Jeff and Shaleia say in classes. Every block is not like a bad thing, it's building something. So and that's a really important perspective to adopt when you're taking this journey, is that challenges are a good thing, and they are what allow you to grow.
Mm-hmm. It's only like building your relationship with God in all of those areas. So something that is in A Course in Miracles, it says like death is the last block that you will overcome. Like when you stop believing in that, everything is like ready. And that is like what Jesus did. It's like, look, that is nothing.
Death doesn't exist.
Like it doesn't exist. And by that you prove that nothing can touch the Son of God. That there is no separation that can stand behind him and God. So that was like the last, the ultimate lesson.
That's true.
Jesus.
Yep.
If there is no death, there is no separation, there is nothing that can avoid you from being in heaven,
Yeah.
basically.
And I feel like the fact that everyone still kind of focuses on the crucifixion part, like the suffering part, that's kind of like part of the lesson, that's not the part that is important. The important part is the overcoming of death, transcending suffering and ascension.
Yeah, it's not the block that matters, it's what you
it's like that's part of not focusing on the block.
Yeah, I feel like, these people, they are choosing to see weakness in themselves. And this is what I was thinking about, like when you guys were talking, like, facing a challenge moment, like an upset, a block, of course it can be challenged. You have to have a courage to face them, but it's just like a fear of facing and realizing that you are powerful, that you are facing with God, the challenge. So once you realize I am powerful, so there's nothing in the way of it. I can, move through everything. And I feel like this resonates with people that, keep focusing on the part where Jesus was crucified, and seeing him like he is weak in that situation that happened to him. But actually, he was showing the opposite, how powerful he was, and how he wasn't afraid of it, because he was with God.
When I did the sermon on compassion, that was one of the things that I had brought up was even like in Jesus's last moments, he had said, forgive them. They know not what they do. So even in like these moments, like, where he was like, his body was dying, right? He still was, compassionate, forgave those, like, like it, that's strength. There's no weakness at all there, like, right? But like, going back to like, the focusing like on the crucifixion, I also feel like that's often used as like a manipulation tool as well. Um, a way to control, because like, I've been to like so many different churches, and like, I was always on like a lifelong search, spiritual journey, right? Like my journey back to God didn't happen when I found like Jeff and Shaleia. Had been my whole life, right? And so, but that was like one of the things, was like that humans are like so rotten and so dirty and disgusting and stuff like that. Like, thank God Jesus died like for you. Like, like you're just so wretched with sin, and so like, you know what I mean? And I had, carried this belief, that humans like were inherently like bad, and like, and Jesus sacrificed himself on the cross so that we could, have a relationship with God. And I remember asking like my grandmother, like, well, what happened before Jesus even came then? Like, just like everyone just go to hell or what? Like, I had these really like deep questions for a kid, but yeah, I mean, she said, oh, they practice like, I don't know what she was saying, like, like animal sacrifices and like all these other like, and it's like, I don't know what rabbit hole I'm going down right now, but this is like, I'm just gonna get off right now. But I mean, the truth, like, that I learned here is just, it's so peaceful, and it feels actually like I don't have any questions, like to the, like it's truth. Like, you can feel, and it's truth. Like, yeah, this is actually the relationship with God that I've been looking for my whole life. And yeah, and Jesus, yeah, is embodying all the ascended masters, right? So, and I choose that for myself, to have that perfect union with God as well. So thank you.
That's beautiful. I love that. And yeah, it's true. Like, like the purpose of Jesus's life was not to, make humans feel bad, which is like a lot of humans or whatever. Like Christianity or Catholicism, like my family was Catholic, and like there's like that belief that you're born a sinner and people are just bad, and Jesus is like the Son of God, and we're not. Like that's kind of like a belief that's in some forms of Christianity. But like the real purpose of Jesus's life was to show you that you are also a son of God, like to awaken you to Christ consciousness, that you have that potential within you. If you walk the path and you purify your consciousness, you're going to awaken to your Christhood. And Jesus is not like above us, he's our brother. And that's like something like a core teaching of Unionism too, is that everyone is the son of God. We are all the son of God. And he represents like our potential. And that's what the mirror exercise does, is it purifies you so you can align with Christ's consciousness.
Yeah, there's something that is in A Course in Miracles also. I think it's in the first chapter. It's before we continue, you should know that reverence is not appropriate with me because I'm your equal in God, but I'm your older brother, and that's why I'm teaching you, because I have already walked the path, so I can show you how to do it. But the nature at the end is the same. Like, there is no favorites to God.
Yeah, like we're all equal in God's love. And that's something that Jeff and Shaleia have said many, many times, is that we are the Son of God, all of us together, and we're all brothers and sisters. And it's safe to like see, our teachers as our older brothers and sisters on the path who are like, far ahead, and they're able to help us. So I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? I mean, do you have anything more that you'd like to say?
I think that's pretty much my thing. Like to see Jesus as a brother helping you out of suffering. The purpose of Jesus is not to suffer and it's not about suffering at all. It's about refusing suffering. That's what he did.
Yeah.
And what does, this is a thing that he taught, like to refuse the suffering. That's why he was teaching forgiveness, compassion, all that stuff is always suffering.
Yeah.
In you and in others, in projecting to others. So you can feel like your Christhood in you. So,
so like the teachings of, you got a comment. Christian Arcio says, and people should stop romanticizing those ideas. We should focus more on how he lived in a humblest manner and how we showed love in all different ways, and how healing is really important on each and every one of us. God is within us, and so is peace. Yeah, that's very true. Like Jesus was extremely humble and only pointed to God, not to himself. And
exactly.
Unionism is the perfect, the perfect path. Like the teachings of all of the masters, like are the foundation of Unionism. Like they helped lay the way. So that's beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you. Did you guys have anything more that you'd want to share, or do you feel complete?
I feel complete. I'm really looking forward to watching the sermon again.
Yeah, I'll watch it again. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Sorry, Charlie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I'm still grounding out the sermon. It was really powerful, and beautiful, and it's really just receiving that.
Yeah. Well, with that being said, thank you to Shaleia for the beautiful sermon. And thank you to everyone for joining us. And we'll see you next week for the next tea time.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.